Well, the main focus, what's really become our focus and our main selling point, is that we act as a gathering point for the disinformation community. And you will have seen today that we've had people from all over Europe and beyond come to this conference. And it's like it's the main event in the sort of disinformation year, where people both who are involved in government, who are journalists, from all different sectors that deal with information, can get together and share their experience. So really that's what it's about. Well, we started this time, and we've done this sort of thing before, to have people speak at the conference who've had a real lived experience with disinformation. And for example, our first speaker was a young guy called Brett Lee, who was completely sucked in to the sort of conspiracist theory world, but managed to come out again. And he's now an ardent advocate for trying to get people out of this sort of problem. Obviously, there's been a lot to do with Russia because of the war. But not only, but what we see is those that perpetrate disinformation are always becoming cleverer in the way that they do it. For instance, we published a report earlier this year which showed how those who are trying to circulate disinformation are sort of disguising themselves as mainstream media outlets on the web. And, you know, people will be taken in by the look or whatever else. And that's really quite disturbing. And it seems to us sometimes that the legislators, the lawmakers, are always running several paces behind, or more than several paces behind. You say absurd. I mean, it's not absurd. It's when you look at something and you realize, if you start to dig, that it's just such a misrepresentation. But often, as I say, it's about to do with the way it's presented. Sometimes, you know, the facts will draw people in, but it's the way it's got up to look like something else. Or we had one the other year where it's being disseminated elsewhere in the world, in this case in India, but trying to make itself look like a very respectable institution in the EU. I think you're right to put it like that. It's a circuitous relationship, and some of the things that we've heard today, to my mind, reinforce that. And I think the problem is that people are faced with so much information, it's very difficult for them to know whether they can trust this or that source. They try to go to the ones that they know. You know, in my country, it's the BBC, but you know, even an institution like the BBC is criticised for apparently not being as showing both sides of the argument as it ought to do. So people are also mistrustful of some of the sources that ought to be good. So when people start having that sort of mistrust, they start to look at alternative sources, which can, as we know, can be very dangerous. Most of you as journalists have codes of conduct, and you are meant to behave in a certain way in terms of what you report, to check your sources, to be very careful. And I think it's keeping to those codes of conduct that should in some way provide a safety. But of course, we are dealing now, for many reasons, with a very, very sceptical public. And that makes it much more difficult. But all the more reason for you've got to be even better than before, frankly. But I also think there are things that lawmakers can do to try to help protect journalists, the way they work, their sources and other things, and also this sort of terrible sort of tendency we've got now for these so-called strategic lawsuits against the public interest, which slaps. Yeah. In many ways, the EU, I've always felt, works on the basis of dialogue. And if you have these laws, and you're right, sometimes you have them and you feel, you know, is anybody actually going to make them work? But I do think that what the EU law often does is make sure that platforms are talking to lawmakers, talking to the Commission. And for this coming year, when we have a lot of elections across Europe, I was hearing today that the Commission are very much in dialogue, as it were, with the platforms. So it may seem from the outside that nothing's changed, but I think actually something has changed, and there's a lot more working going on to make sure that the space that we have in Europe is safer than it was. No, I think what I was referring to is some of us have a concern that yes, media are rightfully treated as special, but in order to guarantee you get that special treatment, specifically when stuff from you is posted online, if stuff is put online that is not correct, that is potentially damaging, it needs to come down quickly. And therefore we were very pleased to see, many of us, the provisions in the Digital Services Act which allowed for immediate takedown. Now that is perhaps going to be amended by the Media Freedom Act to allow a sort of 24-hour period where media are involved. Now, I accept that there are many very, very responsible media outlets out there, but those 24 hours, there's an old saying, you know, in my country, lies, etc., are off straight away, within minutes, within hours now on the internet. And, you know, the truth takes days to get its boots on, and it's too late, too late. Well, I think you have to go back to the position in the Digital Services Act, and that has to take priority. If something is out there that is incorrect, it needs to be dealt with immediately. And there shouldn't be this period of hanging about. Because first of all, there's going to be a big discussion about who or who isn't media. And secondly, you know, there's going to be argument. And once that argument goes on over 24 hours or however long, it's too late. The damage has been done. I've taken the view that in the main, artificial intelligence is potentially a force for good, but it has to be interpreted or used by a human mind. And that's a responsibility on us as to how we use it. We've had a lot of talk here today about AI, and my view still remains the same. You know, it can do so much for us, but we have to know how to use it. And, you know, if, you know, as a journalist, somebody was explaining in the session that we just had that, you know, a picture of somebody online in a child in a war zone had really badly affected him. But AI would have never seen that. It was a human response. And it's our human response to things that are visual, things that are written, that AI can never replace. And therefore, I think AI can do some very wonderful things, but it always, for the moment, should need us as mediators, as it were, of the content.